Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tracy Hand. I'm the Assistant Director in the Career Development Center, and we're located in Kettler 109. And today we are talking with some of our alumni about careers in the arts. We have been doing we've completed, this is our 5th panel that we've done for all of the various major areas on campus. And so I'm definitely really excited to hear what our 4 panelists have to say this afternoon. First thing I'd like to have happen is I would like for each of you to tell us your name, when you graduated, what your major was when you were here, and what your current job title is, and what's your current job title. So we're going to start with Doug, and then we're going to go to Lisa. Almost had it. I almost had it. And then we'll go to Lisa, and then Madison, and then Lindsey. So Doug, if you could go ahead and get us started.
My name is Doug Hassell, and I graduated in the spring of 1999. My major was instrumental music education, and my current job is I'm the director of bands at Carroll High School here in Fort Wayne.
All right.
All right, my name is Lissa. I graduated in 2013 with a degree in theater, and I am now a graduate student at UNC School of the Arts in their first ever animatronics program. I also do some freelance puppet and prop work. One of my most recent videos has been making the rounds internationally in puppet slams. And I also sit on the board of directors for Puppeteers of America as secretary of the board.
Hi, my name is Madison Boyden. I graduated really recently in 2021 in the spring. My major was music therapy, and now I am a board certified music therapist, and I work full-time for Mainstay Music Therapy in the Fort Wayne area.
All right, my name is Lindsey Wright, she, her. I graduated in 2007. I was a music therapy major as well. And my current title is Executive Director of Therapies and Advancement at Opportunities for Positive Growth. I also serve on the Great Lakes region of the American Music Therapy Association board, as well as I'm the Government Relations Chairperson for the Association for Indiana Music Therapy as well.
All right, good stuff. So here's my second question. When did you know that what you're doing is what you wanted to do? So anyone can take the floor in this one first.
I always knew that this was what I wanted to do. I grew up loving the Muppets. I loved seeing how things worked. I had a family that was very arts and engineering based. So I grew up knowing I wanted to do animatronics, but there was no clear path. So I kind of was open to puppetry. And I just wound up doing a lot of it kind of off and on. And then recently got into it a lot more, but animatronics and puppetry was what I always wanted to do. It just took me a little while to get there.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what animatronics actually is?
So animatronics, probably what a lot of people are familiar with are like the Disney dark rides. So like Pirates of the Caribbean, oh God, now I'm forgetting them. Like the Little Mermaid ride, Carousel of Progress, any animated figure that you see in there, that's an animatronic. That's kind of the high end realm of it. If you also saw Walking with Dinosaurs, that arena show, that's also a lot of animatronic work there. Actually know someone who worked on that tour. And on the low end, like what a lot of people are maybe a little more familiar with seeing in person and didn't necessarily get maintained, well, Chuck E. Cheese. Those up there on the stage, those are animatronics. Not what we're going for here.
Okay.
but that's what they are.
Thank you for enlightening me, if no one else. Anyone else? When did you know that this was what you wanted to do?
I'll jump in. I remember very vividly a day in 6th grade. I just looked up at my band director at Northwood Middle School. I said, I think I want to do that. And I went home and I told my mom, and she sort of laughed at me. And then I went on about being the business of a 6th grader and a 7th grader and so forth. And then when I got into high school, I guess I never really gave a whole lot of thought about really too many other options. I just instrumental music just sort of seemed like it was kind of what fit me. When I got into my junior and senior year, I really got into writing and literature, and considered being an English major. And then as we got into school, and I went in for as a freshman for instrumental music education, considered double majoring in English and music, and then had to write a research paper and said no, because I realized I wasn't very good, nor did I like that part. But when I was in high school, I really thrived, I think, in instrumental music. And this might be a comment for later, but I think a lot of people going into instrumental music think they're going to major, like if I'm going to be a band director, they think that being in college studying that is like majoring in band in high school, and it's very much not. There's a lot more to it, like a lot of other things. But I was very fortunate to be able to have some great coaching through college to help me understand that. And but there was never really a point where I didn't think about doing it. So just kind of always known.
Madison, Lindsey?
Yeah, I can chime in. Yeah, I have wanted to always be in music. My family owns a music store downtown Indianapolis that my grandfather started. It's been open for 75 years. And so I grew up in the music store. So loving music and being around professional musicians all the time. My current job, I don't have a music therapy caseload anymore. I supervise music therapy. Well, I supervise the directors of music therapy. I supervise our directors of occupational therapy and employment services. So at some point, I decided that I wanted to help other professionals grow, and that I was focused on, building the systems that allow for growing new services and supporting people with different disabilities through those services. And as I feel like as my job has gotten to a point where I don't maybe feel challenged at that point, I grab a little bit more and I'll write another program proposal. And at that point, my job shifts a little bit. So that's a long answer.
Yeah, my story is sort of like Lindsay's as well, just like growing up in music. Both of my parents are musicians. My mom went to school for vocal performance. So like I felt like I was kind of like immersed in music as like at a young age. And then I was always like playing instruments and singing like in choir and everything. And then I actually wanted to go into performance as well. But then I really thought about like what I wanted to do and like how much I loved people. And so in high school, when it was time for me to pick like what I wanted to do with my life, my dad actually mentioned music therapy because he was a counselor and he co-treated a lot of times with the music therapist. So that's kind of when I started looking into music therapy and became interested. And ever since then, I've just been like into it. And it's just like so cool to be able to build relationships with like a whole bunch of different people. And it's seriously the coolest thing ever. Like I like just as a new professional, I just think like every day, like how awesome it is that I get to just share music with others and build relationships through that. So
Thank you. Thank you. So would any of you say that you currently have your dream job?
Yeah, actually I do. When I was in, one of the things that I did when I was in college was, as I just worked with a lot of different band programs, teaching trumpet lessons, working with marching bands, that sort of thing. And in about 1997, when I started thinking about really the reality of where things were going, I became friends with some people that work with the Carroll Band program. And at that time, the whole Northwest Allen area was beginning the boom that it's really kind of still in. And with what I was hoping to do with my career, that's kind of where I thought I would go. That seemed to me like, some places in my hometown, and my family's from here, so that would be great. And then actually when I graduated, the job opened, and I applied and didn't even get an interview. And then spent the next 13 years, I taught in 4 different other schools around the state, and thought I was where I wanted to be. In 2005, was teaching at Norwell High School in Ossian, and really thought I would be there probably until I retired. And then I had a student walk in one day and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about leaving and going to a large school?" And I said, "Well, I'd be lying if I said I never thought about it, but no one's calling me, so I guess the answer right now is no." The next day, the guy who was here before me called me and said, "Hey, I'm going to be retiring and getting out of this, and can I talk to you about coming and working with your program?" And I said, it kind of went right over my head. And I said, "Wait a minute, your job in the back of my mind, like my dream job, is opening." So after going through talking with him and going through the interview process, was offered the position, and initially was considering turning it down because I didn't want to start over again. And this is where my wife steps in. And I've been talking about this job for 13 years, and thinking I didn't want to go through starting all over again, because I'd done that so many times. I don't know if I want to do that. And I was ready to turn the job down. And she said, "Okay, if you're at peace with that, I'm at peace with that. But remember, this is not going to come back around again." I said, "I know." So I went to work, and she shot me this email, and she never emails me. She just doesn't. She's not an email person. And there's the first line of the email says, "If you don't take this, you're a fool. This is all you've been talking about for your entire life and your career, and they're giving it to you. And now you're going to walk away from it. And you need to remember that if you don't take this, you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering what if." And she's 100% right. So I'm in my 10th year here, and there have been a couple other offers. I said, "No, this is home. This is where I need to be." And I literally smile every day going, I can't believe I get to do what I get to do where I want to do it. So it's pretty awesome.
Very good, very good. I think that that would be real encouraging for others in the field, especially when you're in the arts. You said 2 things. You were afraid to start over, but then your wife chimed in with the what if. And it's the question that I know a lot of us, have to ask ourselves. What happens if I don't take this opportunity? What will I have really missed out on? And so sometimes what you want has to go just a little bit deeper than what you're afraid of. And I think that's a really good testament. When I go into classrooms, I always tell students, you want to be able to enjoy what it is that you do. You want to smile when you go to work. It doesn't mean that everything is going well all the time, every day, but you want to be able to smile when you go to your place of work. And that's why it's important for them to select really well. Is there anyone else that would like to chime in with that?
Yeah, I'll chime in because I got to do a lot of really cool things in Fort Wayne. That's where I made the music video. That music video was made all by PFW alums. Every one of us was an alum. So I got to do some really cool stuff there, but it wasn't quite to the level I wanted. So that was why I started searching out grad school, because I would love to be in Disney Imagineer. I would love to work for the Henson Company. Those are companies that are like responsible for some of my childhood memories, and I would just love to be able to help, help them make more. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there, and it's just a matter of, keeping the work going and things like that.
All right. Anybody else would like to chime in?
I would just say, I don't know, I being like so young and just like newly certified, I guess, like this is like just the fact that like I was able to like go throughout my entire coursework and then like do my internship and then like pass my exam, which yeah, it just is like a total dream to me. Like I definitely would like to go further and like continuing my education eventually, and just like reaching out to like different opportunities, especially in the Fort Wayne area, and to like more like mental health type areas as well. But I would say this is definitely my dream, but not like as far as it will go.
Okay. So you have your dream career, but you don't necessarily have the dream job. And I think sometimes the dream job doesn't always come right away, or we're not even really thinking about it. And that, like you said, you're newly minted, so you're just like, oh my goodness, I got something in my field. This is great. So yeah, so I think sometimes that does happen. I would love to hear, I know we heard a little bit from Doug, but I definitely would love to hear a little bit more about some of the steps that you took to get to the actual job that you are currently in. So in terms of the resume preparation, and maybe you had to do the interviewing, possibly being turned down from 5 or 10 or 40 jobs before you kind of got to the space where you're at. So I would love to kind of go a little bit deeper into your career trajectory and how you got here and stuff.
I can talk a little bit about that. So I feel like something that I didn't realize was super important, that has helped me get where I am, is networking. The first music therapy job I got because I went to a conference and I roomed with somebody I didn't really know, a friend of a friend, and I met new people. And I got a job offer based on the people that I met at that conference. So in terms of like, what can a student do to help with this process, I think networking with your professors, being involved in the different organizations that advocate for your profession, and just getting to know lots of people can help create opportunities. I think a good resume is very important as well. Interview skills, preparing for the interview. I do lots and lots of interviews. I facilitate lots of interviews. And I've interviewed 500, 600 people. And I would say there are a lot of people that don't come prepared with, like, what are my strengths? What are the areas of need? Where do I see myself in 5 years? You're always going to be asked those same questions. It's a red flag if somebody like doesn't have any questions for us in the interview. So I think that interview prep was really important. Having a professional resume, following up with the interviewers. It's really important too. I came to that first interview where the job wasn't even posted, and I just happened to meet, the right people. I showed up with a portfolio, was dressed professionally. I brought a case study that I had written, and I was asked in the interview, when are you going to publish this? so it was, you know, I was well received. And that's because I was prepared for the interview, and then after that, how did I get this job from that music therapist job, and, and all the steps really in between. So I wrote proposals for the job that I wanted to have. And I explained why it was important to create that job. And more often than not, that happened. Sometimes it takes time, though.
You said some really key stuff there, Lindsey. Especially, I know as the liaison for visual and performing arts area, I know I talk to a lot of students, and sometimes they say, "Oh, we don't need your office. I'm music therapy. I'm set. No, I don't need a resume. I'm set. Oh, I'm in fine arts. I'm set. I don't need a resume. Oh, I'm doing music. I don't need one. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna be the band instructor, and oh, I don't need to have good interviewing skills." And I get this quite often. And you're sitting here and you're saying, no, you need what everyone else on the campus needs. Building your network, learning how to properly follow up, all of those things. So you're saying, hey, just because we're not in the business school, that doesn't mean that we don't need to do the interviewing prep and that sort of thing, that we're not just going to be able to go in and play our instrument and they're just going to go, oh, wow, but it doesn't matter that you can't get a sentence together or anything. So I appreciate that very much, Lindsey, very much.
Can I piggyback on a couple of things that were just said too? I think there's both of you talked about following up. I've been out to the campus several times to speak to some of the music classes. And one of the things I try to tell students is, if you have any questions, here's my email, here's my cell phone, call me, email me. And I'm always surprised at how rarely that actually happens. Whether it's, any one of us we've all been through those classes where a guest speaker comes in and says, please let me know if you have any questions. And it rarely happens. And usually when it does, I'm pretty excited to reach out and help, because I remember not knowing how clueless I was and thinking that I had it sort of figured out. The other thing too is the interview skills that are necessary. I would say, in addition to having great interview skills, is be careful what's on your social media. I have a marching band staff that I work for, that works for me. And, one of the first things we talk about is, yes, I want them to have great skills. And yes, I want them to, to have, employability and be good at their job. But be careful what's on your social media, because, just because you have a certain feeling about something or whatever, those things are going to last a lot longer than the interview will. And if you have something out there that doesn't speak well of you or how you represent your profession, that gets found out and held on to very quickly. And the networking piece on that, we need to network with each other, but also people who are looking to hire, they network as well. And, it's pretty easy to tell who's taking care of business online versus those who are just being careless about it. And the ones who are taking care of business are going to be the ones who are employed, and the ones who aren't, they're going to be scratching their heads going, what did I do?
And I just wanted to jump in to also reiterate the importance of networking, because, that's how I got most of my theater work in Fort Wayne, was because it was people in my network from PFW that knew me, and then they would sometimes refer me to other people on occasion. And I also wanted to talk about social media, because yes, it is something you have to be careful of, but you can also use that as a tool. Like, if you are a visual artist, take pictures of your work and put it up there to show what you're working on. Even if it's just like a little preview thing and you put a watermark on it so then you make sure nobody steals it. It's also a great way to put your stuff out there so then other people can see what you're working on.
And I actually first saw my current position on social media. So that's kind of how I am where I am, like with Mainstay, because I do follow a lot of like music therapy companies' social media accounts. So when they, when they post like, hey, we're hiring or whatever, then I know what's going on. And also you can just like, I think it's interesting kind of to just follow them too. I mean,
Yeah.
just like see what everybody is doing in the field.
Yeah, and in my case, it gave me a great look at some of the stuff the school does before I applied and before I came down here, even to see kind of what they had and what they offered. So I encourage it. And yeah, I encourage finding ways of utilizing it rather than being afraid of it.
This is some good stuff, everyone. Good stuff. We're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to go back and kind of talk about your time here at PFW, or if you were here when it was IPFW. So can you talk about how your experience here, how it really prepared you after graduation? What were some of your key takeaways and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'll jump in because my first job was actually for the Allen County Public Library, running one of their branch maker spaces. And my emphasis was actually in acting. It wasn't in the more hands-on stuff, but I did a lot of that as well. So for me, the skills that they kind of like really drilled into us in the acting program, one of the things was never run out of material. So when I went into my interview, they had called me up because at first I didn't get the interview at all. And then they had the person quit on them at the last minute before they opened the maker spaces. So they called me back and said, hey, can you come interview? We'll send you the job description again. And it was this long list of like everything they were hoping to offer in this maker space. And it was like, well, I don't know what the room is going to be like when I get in there. I don't know what equipment's going to be available. I don't even know how many people are going to be in there or what their skill level is going to be. So I actually prepared 5 presentations when they had told me to only prepare 1. And then I was able to show them in the interview after I did my presentation, where I took an Arduino and put their names on it and it scrolled across the screen. So I was able to say to them, yeah, you told me to only prepare 1, but I prepared 5 because I didn't know what I was walking into. And I didn't know if you were going to want more either, because that's one of the things they tell us is, if you're preparing your monologues, have a bunch in your back pocket. That way, then if they say, can you do this? You can pull it out and do it right there. And I also learned at PFW a diverse skill set. I did acting, I did stage management, I did props, I did wardrobe crew. So all that I was able to pull from when I was planning library programming. And being able to multitask in some degrees, because I wasn't there, I didn't have a lot of hours to be there. So being able to say, okay, this thing is printing, I'm going to go work on this while it's doing that and plan this thing until someone comes in. And be on time. That whole idea of being on time so you don't waste someone else's time as well was something else I learned. And I usually just show up early because I don't want people waiting on me.
I would say PFW definitely prepared me. And as a recent grad of PFW, I think especially like clinically wise, I use a lot of the stuff that I've learned like through practicum, my practicums in music therapy on a daily basis. But also PFW gave me a lot of great like volunteer and like community engagement experiences in music therapy. And I like something that I really wish is that I would have like participated in those and like took those opportunities sooner in my educational career. Like I feel like it was like later on I was like, oh, like I'm really getting serious in this and like I better take these opportunities. And I don't know, I was able to write an article and like publish one for PFW about like my practicum experience. And there were just a lot of opportunities that I had through PFW and through the music therapy program at PFW that like to reflect back on, and really, I think, brought me to where I am today, especially within like my clinical work and my overall like thought process, music therapy wise.
Lindsey or Doug, anything you'd like to add?
Sure. I'm going to reiterate the clinical work that I was able to do as a student. I'm trying to remember how many practica, how many different settings I went to as a music therapy student. It was quite a few, and I think I did an advanced practica as well, so maybe 5 different settings. And that was important because where I thought I was going to go more into psych, and then I ended up going, that's not what I ended up going into. I ended up working under the Medicaid waiver system in Indiana, and moved from Minnesota back to Indianapolis. And, you know, what was out there close to my family and my fiance at the time was not what I was thinking I was going to go into. I ended up loving what I did go into, and I'm so happy that that happened. But I wouldn't have been prepared if I didn't have such diverse experience from IPFW at the time. So, you know, I think sometimes we think we know what our dream career is going to be, and then it turns out to be something else. And I'm glad that it was a diverse education.
I kind of had this idea of, you know, the dream job that I have right now that's the kind of job I thought I wanted. And dogs are going. When I got involved in my student teaching placement, it was a small school. It was at Woodland Senior High School. And that was a new experience, and really had never thought about teaching middle school and high school. Just I was pretty bullheaded. I said, high school is what I want to do. And I found out I really enjoyed teaching middle school a lot. And my first job was at a very small school where I was teaching more middle school than high school. And for those 13 years prior to this, I was doing that. So it was not something I had ever considered. It was something I wound up doing and wound up loving it. And as much as this is my dream job, I really missed that part of it. I don't know, I guess we're all a little bit immature, and it's fun to kind of be a middle school person every once in a while. But so that was kind of an unexpected thing that really paid off in the first part of the career, and then for a good majority of it.
I'm just writing some things down based off of what you're saying. I'm hearing diverse experiences, diverse education, expect the unexpected because you don't know what it might lead to, following up and being on time. And so I'm hearing these themes, and I'm hearing these career related themes. And so I think it's just really something good. So some of this we kind of already talked over, but what are some tips that you would give students right now? And I want you to think about students coming off of a pandemic, and they've been home for 2 years. They've probably gotten passed to the next grades and things of that nature without doing tons of work, just probably like the bare minimum. So now they're coming back into more in-person events, more in-person interaction. They're freshmen on campus. They have to learn how to navigate campus, but still they're coming off of a pandemic. So that leaves them in some kind of tricky spaces. What are some tips that you would give them in terms of how to navigate working with their faculty and really getting the most out of their faculty right at the onset?
I will answer this because I'm in school right now. Talk with them, email them, find ways to get a hold of them. Because like at one point, I know I had a problem back in undergrad where I was having problems getting my hands on a play. If I had just talked to the professor, they probably would have given it to me. Instead of having to go all the way to the main branch of the library, get it, and then come back and hopefully get to it in time. And even here now, like, because this is a brand new program, I am the first year of this program. There's a lot of a learning curve here trying to figure out just how these classes work. And there have been times where I've said to the teacher, this class, you guys gave us way too much work to do. We're struggling. And it's also kind of figuring out, like, how do you want this to go? Talk with them about how you want your trajectory to go, because that's something I wish I had talked about more. Because I feel like if they had known that I'd wanted to go more towards creature work or animatronic work, they maybe would have tried to put me towards some better resources for being able to do that. But just be open with them and talk with them, because you also never know who they know. Because I can tell you, like Puppeteers of America, I have sat with people that have worked on films with Spike Jonze. I have sat with people who worked on Star Wars films. Talk with people, get to know them, know their stories, because you'll find some really cool things, and you never know where that's going to wind up career-wise. Because I wound up interning for someone because I talked with them. So go to those networking events, whether you think they're for you or not, because they might even be able to get you like an adjacent job. So that's my big push, is just make sure you're talking.
I guess I'd like to piggyback on a lot of things. What was it you just said? Gosh darn it, went in and out of my head.
Networking and talk to people.
Yeah, I think the listening, everyone has a story. And, sometimes I remember being, scared to death of pretty much all of my professors because they were professors. And there's a healthy understanding of respect for that, but, they're people first. And, I think one of the great ways to just engage with people is to ask their stories and to listen, because most people are willing to share. And I would say make it a habit out of having conversations. I think it's pretty easy to go to one networking thing or go to one person and talk, but you don't necessarily want to be the person that is always sitting in the front row raising your hand, but just genuinely engaging in conversation. And I think so often what happens is those things naturally produce the opportunities, like the who do you know and that sort of thing. So just engage your instructors and listen to them.
Yeah, I am 100% with both of you, where networking, talking to your professors, getting to know them, years later, those same people are introducing you still to new people. That still happens with me when I go to a professional conference. So those connections are really, really important. And you never know who knows someone else. And office hours, use those office hours as a tool to get to know people. And, like Lissa said, if they better understand maybe what your dream and what you think your path's going to be, then they can give you a more tailored experience too, and help you towards that goal.
Yeah, and I still talk to my professors. I mean, not on a daily basis, but it was through internship, it literally was a weekly basis. I would always have one professor hey, how's it going? And actually through my relationship with that one professor, I was able to get an internship in Rochester, New York, which is totally something that I would not have been able to do, or at least wouldn't have known about the opportunity at all if I wasn't as close, or wasn't as hey, I really want to move out of the area for my internship to learn new things and, like to broaden my experience. And yeah, just to let your professors talk with your professors, let them know what your needs are. And if you have like a certain goal in mind, ask for help, which is something that like I'm really bad at doing, but that's so important. And then also just using your resources that the university provides, like tutoring and like all of those types of things. Like, I don't know if I would have passed one of my classes if I didn't go to tutoring. So that was just so helpful. But yeah, just use all of your resources, because there are a lot, and a lot of them are free too.
That's what I try to tell the students. Use the Career Development Center. It's free. You don't have to pay $300 to get a resume done. $0. But yeah, that's some really good stuff. And one thing that I would definitely add when it comes to the emailing is make sure you learn how to email. And that you know how to put in that salutation and all of those things, and you don't have 6 sentences and you call it 1 sentence and it's just this complete run-on. So that's definitely something that I would definitely add to that. And that's a good point about the office hours. The professors are there. Why not take advantage of that time that's there? So we just have just a few more minutes, and some of the stuff we've already actually talked about. But what I would like to know is if there was something career-wise that you could do over, something that maybe you didn't do while you were here at PFW or IPFW, but that you didn't get to do. What would that be? What is it that you wish that you had done or wish that you had taken advantage of, and that sort of thing?
I do wish that I had taken some kind of CAD class, because I realized a year after I graduated, I got the job at the library. And I realized there was like a really easy entry point to CAD with a certain browser-based program. And if I had realized just how easy it would have been to get into that or to get started with it, I probably would have gotten into CAD a little bit more, or 3D work, because that is something that is becoming more and more used in the entertainment industry. Being able to model in 3-dimensional space and being able to print something out, because prototyping is becoming something that's used more and more, especially on site. I would have taken CAD, and I probably would have looked into maybe some more clubs on campus, or taken better advantage of the Career Development Center, because I think I only went in there once or twice to get my resume looked at.
Well, once or twice is better than 0.
Exactly. But look outside the department to see what's going on. Because outside the department means you'll become a better artist and you'll become a better employee.
I would say, well, it's not directly a career thing. It does show up in your career as a student. Make sure that you are giving time to the things you don't want to do. Specifically, like those classes, like I did fine in my major classes, but the gen ed stuff, I just remember going, well, I'm not going to use this, that kind of thing. And, and that showed up on my transcript. But it also shows up in life, because, we've all seen those memes that say, what my friends think I'm doing, what my mom thinks I'm doing, what my, what this person thinks, what I'm actually doing. And especially in education, not just in music education, but in the world of education, there are so many things that have apparently a lot less to do with what we want to do than what we are actually doing. And if you don't develop a sense of self-discipline to do what's required versus what you want, then that is a habit that can carry over into all facets of life. And when you develop the habit of only doing what you want versus what is needed, the areas of your life that require what is needed will start suffering, and that can and will affect your ability to do your job the best that you want.
That needs to be on some kind of a meme or something and posted all over social media. That right there was another piece of gold, okay? That self-discipline, giving time to the things you don't want to do. Madison, Lindsey, anybody want to add anything that they wish that they would have done?
I wish I would have kind of branching off of what's already been said, but I wish I kind of would have gotten more involved in like student organizations, or like especially like our music therapy club. I definitely was involved like the last half of my like education there, but I definitely, it was something that I was kind of like hesitant to be involved in at first, just because the club was sort of, it was just like a large club of like mainly upperclassmen, and I was kind of just like afraid that like, I don't know, I was just afraid. But I definitely wish that I would have been more involved in that. And along with just more like volunteer opportunities and like community engagement opportunities in the beginning of my education is something that I wish that I would have taken more advantage of, because, you know, you're building and building onto your experience. So it's only gonna help you be a better professional in the long run and a better person too. So yeah, that's just a couple things that I really wish that I would have taken more advantage of in the beginning.
I wish that I would have worked less and just focused more on studies. I didn't have that parental support to get through school. And so I had a job that would pay my tuition or reimburse me for tuition if I worked 30 hours a week. And I also, as a music major, had a very, very large load of credit hours. And I, you know, I mean, it was to the extreme that I would have to be to work at 5:30 in the morning. And so if I had a listening test that day, I would get up at like 3:30 so I could study before I went into work. And just to get through the education, and, you know, I really didn't want to take out very many loans. And I just wish I would have taken out more loans and worked less, because working 30 hours a week while you're trying to really learn and get everything out of your education is very difficult. And yeah, that would be my do-over.
Woo. And I've talked to some people in the music therapy program, and they talk about how intense it is. So I'm trying to envision 30 hours and this intense schedule. And then you're telling me that you started work at 5:30 in the morning, which meant you got up at 3:30 in the morning. So yeah, that's a lot. Doesn't leave a lot of room for those things. This was some good stuff. So I want to end. I want to take my last question, and then you'll be able to kind of do like your final words. But I want each of you to talk about your fields respectively and where you think it is going to go in the next 5 to 10 years. What are the changes that students should be thinking about and preparing for now? One of the things that I always tell students is I always tell them, you want to be the expert in your area, in a sense. You want to make sure that you know where it's going so that when that change comes, you're able to take on that particular change because you already knew that it was coming.
I can speak to that on music regarding music therapy. Music therapy is growing a lot, has grown so much in Indiana since, my first job, where I had explained to everybody what it was. That doesn't happen quite as much anymore. We've grown, the field has grown, and there's a ton of demand because there's reimbursement through Medicaid waivers in Indiana, and the demand continues to grow. I heard a weird statistic the other day about the state has moved that application process online. And so suddenly, because it's easier to get the funds and a Medicaid waiver, if you have a certain diagnosis, 30% more people have come into the system this year than in previous years. So that's a lot more people that have access to music therapy and that will want music therapy, and it's just going to keep growing. So I would say, in Indiana, that's one of the biggest reimbursement areas. There's not a lot else out there. So preparing to work with people that have, there are 5 different diagnoses: traumatic brain injury, epilepsy, intellectual disabilities, autism, and cerebral palsy. So, preparing to know how to work with those folks, so that way you can be part of that growth in the future.
And adding on to what Lindsey said, I think too, like just the whole shift from like things being provided via telehealth too has been huge. Like my entire education was in person, and then I had an 8-month internship. Almost my entire internship was virtual. So, and I think I know some places are they're moving back to in person, but I think it's always going to be valuable just to know how things work virtually when working with other people. And because really, if you think about it, if you're working with any individual who's immunocompromised or something like that, virtual sessions could be such a big thing for them because they would be able to get access to therapy, whereas if they had to go in person, they wouldn't necessarily have that access. So yeah, I definitely think that just things, I think that's one of the only things that came out of the pandemic that I or I guess, or that I think is valuable, is that we do have that opportunity to kind of shift to virtual, if really needed. So I think that's really important.
Okay.
I would say in terms, I'm just going to put it all under entertainment, because what I'm hoping to do is be both theme parks and live entertainment and just be able to bounce between a bunch of different things. So keeping yourself diverse. And I mentioned learning CAD, being able to model in a 3D space, but still know how to do things by hand. Because if you know how to draw a sketch, you can start with that in a meeting and then expand on that in the computer. And then that goes through these digital pipelines that places are starting to use, because one of the things, this is a conservatory type school that I'm in. So a lot of the teachers are still working, even if it's in the summer, in actual entertainment areas. So they're starting to see more and more the digital pipeline is coming through these different fields of entertainment. And it's also something to keep in mind that, yes, movies are using a lot of CG, but they're still using practicals in a lot of cases, because, they tried going entirely CG in some cases, and now they're kind of coming back towards practical. And I'm seeing puppeteers get hired because they can be on-set reference for something that will later become a CG character. So yeah, know the computer, but still know how to do it by hand so you can communicate when you don't have the computer.
I think there's a lot of similarity to that also, Lissa, in instrumental music. There are a lot of great tools that are being developed right now for any music education people. If you've ever heard of the Harmony Director, which is it's a synthesizer that deals with something called just intonation, and you can use all kinds of things to lay out these drones and have people really get into hearing and listening. And I think the future of instrumental music is a hybrid of in-person and electronics, not in so much in terms of the what's being done, but the tools that are available. And that's a major shift I've seen in the last certainly since I've been at Carroll in the last 10 years, but especially within the last 5. The fact that we switched when we started doing marching band stuff this year, rather than having everybody have a drill page, a drill book, everything was on an app on their phone. And it was a game changer. And there were a few, speed bumps, but in terms of using that technology to help replicate, the real. So I would say that synthesis of technology and real people stuff. And then to stay connected to people who are doing it now so that they can come alongside and show you. And then for us who are still doing it, to connect with younger people, because the older we get, we aren't always adept as understanding the new technology too.
This was some good stuff. I said that I was going to go with the final words of wisdom, but what I would like to have happen is for you to speak to parents. You seem like you've been in households, you grew up in households where music was an emphasis, where that creative piece was an emphasis, and students hear a lot of go to school, major in business because you'll always be able to get a job. You don't want to be in the artistic field because you're going to be a starving artist. You're never going to be able to eat. You're going to have to work 2 and 3 jobs and things of that nature. Doing your passion isn't all it's cracked up to be, things of that nature. And I know when we're doing orientation and I'm talking with parents and I'm talking with the student in terms of what the student wants to do as opposed to what the parent thinks they should do. So could you just say a few words to the parents to kind of encourage them that these are viable things that their students can do with majoring in music, majoring in any of the artistic areas and things of that nature?
I can tell you almost every single day I worked at the library, I used the skills I learned in theater. I'm still using those skills, even though I'm going more towards a technical side. Because like right now, right here, it's acting on camera, in quotes. I'm on camera. I am having to project to the microphone. I'm having, I may be tired from the night before, but you can't tell because I'm here and I'm smiling. So those skills, you use them anyway. It's a good skill to have. And okay, fine, maybe they don't want to major in business. Help them find the classes that will allow them to become an entrepreneur in the arts, or as the term is now becoming, artrepreneur, or help them find resources that can make it viable. Don't just crush the passion, because then they're not going to want to do anything really. But the skills are there. The skills make us better employees because we know how to empathize. We know how to find different ways of communicating with someone if one way isn't working.
I would say, I guess, parents of people who are trying to figure out their path, first of all, and this one might be cut a little harshly. Your kids are not you, and your kids will become the best version of themselves when they are the most fully alive in the version of themselves that they're created to be. And that might take a while for them to figure that out. But as far as the arts are concerned, they have to have an appreciation of the aesthetic, the things that wake them up in life. And when I think what happens was when we tell, I see this with my high school students, there's a message right or wrong in high schools right now. You know, you have to know what you're going to do. You have to find your career path, and you need to follow that path. And anyone who's been through college knows about 75 to 80% of the people in college change the major at least once. So there's something wrong with that message. If we're not telling our kids that you need to find what gives you fulfillment in life, I think we're sending the wrong message. And maybe that fulfillment is finding something that makes them a lot of money. Maybe that sense of fulfillment is helping other people. But we need a society that's we need a society that is full of people who are fulfilled. Because right now, in the last 18 months, that has been sapped out of us because we have lost the connection with people.
Yes.
And we need the connection with people to find the fulfillment with us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Success is not just based on how much money you make. I will say that with music therapy, there are so many jobs, there are job postings all over the state for music therapists where employers cannot fill those positions. So the demand is higher than the amount of music therapists we have right now. And music therapists there are some really good high-paying jobs in Indiana. I don't think all the states are the same. Music therapy is very big in Indiana. We're seeing more and more in different states, but it's tied to reimbursement that's available through Medicaid or private insurance or Department of Education, that sort of thing. So right now the demand is very high, and I think it's just going to increase. So the jobs are out there, the jobs pay well. But again, if you're not happy, you're not going to be successful.
I would say if they're, if the student can't do what makes them happy, like they're not going to be able to invest themselves in it as much, which like in turn can lead to so much burnout and just like trying to figure out where to be. So I would just say, like, no matter what the path is that they're trying to pursue, just overall encourage whatever they want to do, because that in the long run, that's going to make them happy, which I think overall is going to make the family happy. And, when you see someone doing what they love, you're not going to be like, oh, well, they're doing something that they love, but like, we don't, like if you see someone really invested and on their path, it's hard to say no, I feel like. So yeah, to just be encouraging, no matter, where they are on the path.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm just going to give you 1 minute to kind of give your final words of wisdom to the students. So starting with Madison, what are your final words to the students?
My final words are just take all of the opportunities that PFW has for you, no matter what it is. Build relationships with their professors, as well as with your classmates, and just really, really seek any like volunteer opportunities, because even if you don't stay in your, field that you go into college for, they're still gonna help you in the long run. But yeah, just get involved as much as possible, ask for help, and just put everything you can into the experience.
Okay, Lindsey.
Yeah, I just to follow along that same line. Yes, this is the time to learn and to focus on building those skills for your future career. There are so many opportunities out there within the school, and also internship opportunities and volunteer opportunities, maybe even jobs that are closely related to building those skills that you'll need in your career. Network, I've said it a bunch during this hour, but network with your professors, network in your organizations related to your field, network in your community, so that way you can call on different people and really create opportunities for yourself when you need to.
Doug.
I think this is nothing like what we've talked about, but number one, realize everybody has problems. The problems that you as students are going through may be unique, but the fact that you're going through problems is normal. And because of that, that's something that ties us all together. And because of that, I think it's important that while you're aware of planning for your future, you don't miss opportunities that are present now. Too often, I think people are so concerned about the future that they forget to live in the present. And I think that the wise person understands that you soak up everything about the present so you can be prepared for the future, not the opposite. And as kind of corny and cheesy as it sounds, find a way to be grateful for everything you have while you have it. Because when you do move into your career, you're going to realize some of the best opportunities of your life were staring you right in your face, and you were so busy doing other things that you didn't grab on and use them when you could have.
Lisa.
So, like we were saying before, take advantage of the opportunities, network, but look outside of what you're doing. You know, don't be afraid to show off your work. Don't be afraid to create something of your own. And, you know, enjoy it while you've got it. You know, and don't be afraid to take on something that's challenging.
Well, I want to thank each of you for just spending this hour and some minutes with us to really just to kind of share your expertise and to share your heart. And I really appreciate that. I can really tell that you love what it is that you're doing, and the idea that you just came to just kind of give back to PFW or IPFW, as you may know it. But the idea that you just came to give back is really a testament to not only where you are at in your career and profession, but it's also a testament to how you actually see what it is that you have gotten at PFW during your years here. And so we definitely appreciate you. And I look forward to talking with you and continuing to network